Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the SOMM TV podcast. My name is Jason Wise. I don't know if you've been listening to the last several episodes, but we've been covering from the Food and Wine Classic in Aspen, and I feel recovered. I feel like we're back to some sense of normalcy here. It was an amazing, intense weekend, and we shot an entire new season of blind tasting sessions. While we were there, we shot lots of drinking bottles. In fact, for the first time, one of the first times, I put myself on the other side of the camera. So I'm going to be drinking some wine with an NBA player named CJ McCollum, and I also pick a bottle for a blind tasting session. So you guys who have reached out and said that I need to put my ass on the line in that show, you have to wait a little longer, but I did pick a bottle for George Walker and Claire, and the outcome is, I will just say, hilarious in what ends up happening. We have coverage of that coming. Just all of these episodes are going to be coming up soon. We have our documentary on the 1874 Perrier Jouet bottle, which is one of the rarest, most expensive champagne bottles in the history of the world, coming. On today's podcast, I am going to speak with a man named Brian Hart. He is a dental surgeon who got himself into the wine business and invented what I think is one of the best things that I have recently tried since I have started using devices again post-pandemic that are wine-related. It's called Vinarmour. And it's this device that you put a bottle in and you can transport it. It stays, pretty temperature safe. But if you've ever traveled back and forth from Europe or South America or to America from Europe, and you saving one of those crazy bottles and you wrap it in your socks and your bras and whatever you wrap it in on the way home in your luggage, there's a relatively decent chance and that it could break and ruin your clothes and do all of that. Or if you're headed to a party or whatever and you're trying to bring a bottle and it's cumbersome and you don't want to put it inside a tote bag and have it break and shake up and all of that stuff. I started using this device and then reached out to Brian to go, how the hell do I let the people who subscribe to SOMM TV and listen to the podcast know about this thing? But the more important thing I want to talk to him before we talk about his invention is wine and teeth. Listen, this guy was a dentist and we all drink a lot of wine. And if you're like me, you worry about what the hell is this doing to my teeth? And will I still have them when I'm 44? So Brian, it's really great to have you on the podcast. That was a really long-winded intro, but
no, great to see you again.
Yeah, it's good. You were with me in the Food and Wine Classic in Aspen. Yeah. You look rested, which is good.
Holy shit. Yeah. What a trip.
It's good.
An amazing trip. Yeah.
It's great. It's sort of a sensory overload from all sides and just really great people, and you meet 100 new people a day.
You know what it is? I was trying to think about how to describe Aspen Food and Wine, and you can give the experience to the most colorful journalist, and they would take a while to describe it, but it is so concentrated. I mean, it is like a 2001 Dechem or fried foie gras. It's just so many layers and so concentrated that it blows your mind. So
yeah, it was fun. It was fun doing daily podcasts, which mostly were us just saying we're alive still, we're tired. It was and that's what those things are like. But the cool thing is, all the content and everything we got coming out is really going to give a representation of how crazy hard we all worked there. So it's pretty good. Why don't you and I talk before we get into this device that you've made that I happen to love?
Yeah.
Can I ask you, are my teeth going to be okay? Can we talk about wine and teeth? Since you are, what are you trained as? Let's start.
Yeah, so I just retired as an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, which is a specialty of dentistry. We go another 4 to 6 years beyond dental school to do face and jaw surgery and mouth surgery. And for your question, as far as wine and teeth goes, the acidity that's in wine is nothing like the acidity that the bacteria in your teeth generate. So, the acidity with wine is not going to do much to your teeth. You just basically take good care of your teeth. You're going to be fine. You even if I'm like I'm studying for some exam and I'm swishing around like Sauvignon Blancs and high acid wines all the time in my mouth, that's not going to rip the enamel off. No issue at all. You just go ahead and brush your teeth at night. You're going to be fine. But what a lot of people don't know about is the effect of cheese on teeth. And cheese has enzymes and bacteria in it, so that if you were to go to sleep before you brush your teeth, if there was any food on the planet that you would want to put in your mouth, chew and eat, and then go to sleep without brushing your teeth, it's cheese, because it is actually protective against your teeth.
Really? So
yeah.
so is this, I've heard about this in the past, that cheese is kind of, it neutralizes acid and does all these things. And so is that why the French eat it at the end of a meal, do you think? Or what's the
The French
how
do
come
a
we're not all
lot of
doing this?
Yeah. Yeah, the French do a lot of things without reason or rhyme, but I think they stumbled into something good because actually, let me backtrack on that. Looking back at the mouths that I saw in France, I don't know if they are doing much good on the dental front, but it's
Yeah, I guess it depends on where you are in France, for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. Yeah, so cheese and wine are actually arguably beneficial for your teeth.
So any kind of cheese? I mean, can I have some Velveeta before I go to bed? Is that fine?
That I don't know. I don't know what has like the highest enzyme content that's protective. I'm pulling this out from first year dental school, 1984. And so I don't remember.
So
exactly.
This is recent. This is recent knowledge.
Right.
Well, what about is it, so from a wine standpoint? Here's whenever I go to a dentist, I say, I'm really sorry. I drink a lot of wine for my job, so hopefully everything's okay. And every dentist tells me, "Oh yeah, I like your movies and I like SOMM TV, so it's okay." And I'm like, "No, is it okay because you like the stuff I'm making, or is it okay because it really is okay?" And so, is there any wine that is not okay for your mouth? I mean, I would assume some of the sweeter wines can't be good.
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't drink a Sauterne and go to bed without brushing my teeth. Because it's loaded with that residual sugar, and the bacteria are going to feast on it, and then they will secrete their acids, which are much more detrimental to the enamel of the teeth than the acids of a wine.
Interesting. What about, is there any other things, like a standpoint of alcohol? Is that a bad thing for your teeth?
Nope.
Gums?
Alcohol actually has just as high of a risk of oral cancer as smoking does. And the combination of the two is crazy. There's a real additive effect to oral cancer between the two.
So the alcohol's not good in your mouth in a constant thing, at least. So that is something to worry about. No?
I wouldn't worry about that. If I'm tasting, if I'm a professional wine critic and I'm tasting 80, 90 bottles a day, I'm not worried about it at all. Even though your teeth are bathing in that, as long as you brush your teeth at night, you're good.
Okay. Well, this puts me at rest. I figured I'd just get a few questions
Sleep
out
soundly tonight.
about. Well, what I do is I gargle with wine before I go to bed, and then not Sauterne, luckily. All right. So how the hell did you get from being a dentist, or an advanced dentist, as you say, someone who spent much more time studying and in school, to being in the wine business? And then we'll get to what you invented and how. But where did you start with wine?
So I started, a buddy of mine in college back in the late 70s, early 80s, was drinking wine when all of the rest of us were drinking beer. And so in my early 20s, he would always introduce me to the Chateau SOMM. And
so he's drinking real wine. He wasn't
real
just,
wine. Well, he's in the record business. He's actually co-president of Warner Records right now. But he was in with a lot of big wigs, and so he was at the parties where they were ordering great wine and things, even while he was in college. And so he would always introduce me to that, and so that kind of tweaked my interest. I really got into wine about in 2002, after the 2000 vintage came out in Bordeaux. And I was hanging out with some golf buddies, and they kept talking about this vintage, how we needed to get it. And that just started my whole journey down wine. So after playing in that for about 15 years or so, I was on a trip to Napa with my partner, and I saw a problem. And the problem is that there was no trustworthy, bulletproof way to get my wine from point A to point B if I was flying. I had been traveling for years, wrapping stuff in my dirty underwear and praying the whole flight back that it would make it home safe. And we had bought a bottle of a special wine in Napa at Davis Estates. It was a dessert Cab Franc that she wanted to bring back. And we thought, well, hell, we're in Napa Valley here, the home of wine tourism. We should be able to find something that is meant to carry a bottle back. And we went all up and down the valley. And really, the only thing we could find was the bubble wrap bags that have a Ziploc seal on it. And She said to me, no way in hell am I trusting that because I got a $600 dress in my luggage, And so I'm thinking to myself, how easy can it be to develop a puncture-proof, leak-proof bag? Just get some Kevlar and
Kevlar. You went straight to Kevlar.
Bulletproof, man. Yeah.
You really. So, okay, let me just take one step back and describe to people listening what this device looks like and feels like. So I know that this must have been a pain in the ass to develop. I mean, obviously I'm having you on the podcast to talk about an essentially a sealable bag to put a bottle in. There's a reason for this. This damn thing, I'm telling you, if you hold this thing in your hand, I'm kind of concerned for Brian here because I don't think anyone's ever going to have to replace it. I think it is like the too well made as far as a thing goes. It is this very, very, very tough. It has a very tough kind of a top that you screw into place or so. Would you describe it that way? It screws in, it locks in, and then it feels like leather. What is it? It's
Scottish wax cotton. Scottish wax cotton or Scottish wax canvas.
I mean, it feels like you could charge. Now it's light, so I don't want to make it sound like it's like a big bulky or heavy thing. It kind of collapses, but you could charge into like the World War I trenches with this thing. I feel like
totally, carrying munitions to the front line.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, and it's totally tight. So the air itself becomes part of the reason that it stays.
Indeed.
So I just want people to understand like what we're talking about. It looks like a postal tube with a leather strap on it that somebody who needed it to last 500 years made it in a time where we don't make stuff like this any longer. Everything's made to be replaced. So when you came to me and said, take a look at this thing, I was like, you're never going to have to replace it. How are you going to have a business?
But you're missing one adjective though. Okay. Of all the postal tubes in the world, it is the sexiest postal tube in the world. It is definitely.
It's got the like World War I courier, element of it in a way that I mean in the sexiest way I can. It's great. So, but why would you go straight to Kevlar? Why does it have to be bulletproof? Like, what was the point?
Because
why not just bubble wrap? Why not? What's wrong with bubble wrap?
Because I wanted a product where someone takes their bottle of wine or tequila or whatever your spirit beverage of choice is when you're doing travel, put it in your luggage and don't worry about it. Just problem solved. And really the only thing that does that is Kevlar. And so we got two different types of Kevlar actually in there. When I designed this product, I wanted to do something basically because I'm a little bit paranoid. I didn't want anyone to make a better product. I did not want anyone to come out with a product that was more puncture proof or leak proof. So I just went straight to the top.
Right. Okay. Well, this one time I was in Alba, so we were shooting SOMM 2, Into the Bottle. And we were with, if you've seen the film, Ian opens up an old Barolo in there. That's to prove a point.
I remember.
About, new and old barrels and all that stuff. When I was there, though, we went to this wine shop in Alba, and I won't name the name because I think people have already pillaged all this amazing old wine they have in the basement anyway. But when we were down there, we bought some really old Barolos. I found a really, really old Armagnac, of all places. I found in Italy. And so, but some of these bottles, the corks were... they weren't suspect. They were just old. The things were old. On the way home, I had this Armagnac it was about 1920, I believe. So it was very old. Yeah. I had it leak quite a bit of Armagnac into my suitcase. And in this case, I don't have a $600 dress, and Armagnac is one of these things it's not red or anything like that. So it was a dark brown, and I got it on some dress pants and such. But my biggest thing was this nearly priceless bottle is gone. I mean, it basically all drained into my suitcase, and my suitcase smelled of alcohol. And if I would have had this device, this is kind of everyone I talk to, this is one of those things that you don't know you need until you need. You know what I mean? Like, it's too bad I had to go through that to realize you get what you pay for when it comes to these. Because I had it in one of those styrofoam or one of those, it's shaped like a bottle and it has bubble wrap around it. Yep. So I had it in that, but it still got knocked around. Yeah. And that's the one thing I think your device has over that thing is that if it gets knocked around, it's still within something.
Exactly.
And that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. And like I said, I wanted to develop something where, last thing you want to worry about if you're running late from a flight or late for a flight or hungover is to worry about making sure your bottle gets home safe. Put it in
Yeah.
this, problem solved, done. It's going to be there when I get home. Or in the worst case scenario, if there is a catastrophic impact, the surrounding things in your luggage are going to be safe.
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to this type of an idea, it's kind of timeless. When you look at devices that are made for wine, there are not a ton. We're starting a wine and tech show where we can kind of get into like things that are really interesting and innovative. But I find some of the most innovative things in the wine invention space are really simple. They just fill a niche.
Yes.
They're like kind of like the lipstick tube with the mirror directly on it that flips out. It doesn't take a lot of thought. So like yours is one of these ones that anybody can come up with. We need a new device to do it, but you executed on it. So it's not like you came, the Coravin's another thing I would cite, but that's a very complicated, you're putting argon gas in something. You've got this needle. It's got to do all this stuff. You got to do tons of R&D. So,
well, dude, this was, if someone would have told me how complicated this was going to be at the beginning of my journne, I wouldn't have done it.
Well, for sure. But that's how everything is in life that's worth doing.
Because I didn't even know it, but there wasn't even a patent out yet for a puncture-proof, leak-proof, collapsible container. And, we ended up getting it. I ended up getting it. And there's the reason why it hadn't been done yet, because it was really, really difficult to do.
Well, so let's talk about what's difficult about it. So you basically had to, you wanted it bulletproof. Did you actually fire bullets at this damn thing?
No, but I dropped 7-pound fishing weights on all these different configurations between the impact resistant foam that we use, which is amazing in and of itself. This stuff is used in running shoes and it absorbs 90% of impact energy. And what's cool is that it actually it kind of changes its morphology upon impact, where it turns into like a shield. And so it will absorb 90% of the energy. And but when I was playing with the different foams, I constructed this device where I would drop this round. It's kind of a round lead ball that's used in Alaskan fishing nets, and I would drop it from different heights, and I would try different configurations with the Kevlar and the foam and this and that.
Well, it's just so basically, I just want to know the steps you went through to perfect this thing, because now it's out to market, and I can't imagine, and I'm sure you'll find a way to improve on it, but I can't imagine you improving much on what you've already done, because it seems to me to be so well thought out.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe you went through quite a bit of rounds before you let anyone see or mess with this thing.
Exactly.
So what were the trials and tribulations aside from, the materials themselves must have been a total pain in the ass. You have this, what is it? The Scottish cotton?
Scottish wax cotton. Well, a little bit of the backstory is that once I figured out a way to make a puncture-proof, leak-proof bag and went through everything, it turned out that it was quite expensive to do. And, at first I had this idea that this could be really utilitarian. We'd have a line that you could sell at REI where people could take into the backcountry if they wanted to bring a bottle of Jack Daniels or something into the backcountry. Something that I could offer, all kinds of people at an affordable price, but it was so expensive to make here in the States because I did not want to go overseas to make it, because quality, like I said, it had to be bulletproof and it had to be something that people could explicitly trust. But it became so expensive that I was like, you know what? I'm at this point here where I got the guts of this. If I put on this really nice exterior fabric and really nice leather, then we would have something really, really cool. And so that's like the second part of the design there is we got this waxed cotton from the pioneers of waxed cotton. And this stuff, this material is going to be around, longer than the bags that I make will be on the planet a lot longer than you or I will, because the leather and waxed cotton are like two of the most durable natural materials in manufacturing.
Yeah, well, it would make sense if a bottle's going to break. It has sharp edges inside, which I can't imagine a bottle. It's funny. It's always nice to talk about products, when you actually believe in them. See, this one's an easy one for me because it's badass, and I do think that, like I said before, there's a certain element of you get what you pay for when it comes to certain things. And this is one of those types of things. But, I just think it's such a funny thing. Dentists always seem to love wine, and they always seem to want to stay in the wine world and try to figure out a way to do it. And you seem to have found
Isn't
a way
that crazy?
to throw a flag right dead center and go, hey, I'm going to be here.
Yeah, I think I got into it for a different reason. Like I said, I saw a problem that needed to be solved. And whereas dentists who become winemakers, they do it for other reasons. And I can't speculate as to the reasons why they went into it. But, I'm just, I guess, a typical male in that I have to solve a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I find, sadly to tell you, that I find most women solve problems better than we do. But
right.
I mean, it's just the way it goes. So what is the next step with this thing? So you've invented a tube that carries a bottle of wine, and it is that simple, but yet the use people use for it is complicated. So what's next? I mean, are you going to do something else in this regard? Are you going to improve on that device?
Yeah. I was wondering, what is the temperature of the wine going to do in this thing? So I did some tests, and it is actually more thermally insulative than any other insulative wine tote we tested against. So that, I guess you can say, is a next thing that we found about our product. But we,
that already exists. I mean, have you tested? Because I think that there's a lot of people, if you put this thing in there, have you tried putting it in a hot car, like in Southern California or something, and see how long it actually can keep temperature inside?
Well, last year in Seattle, believe it or not, it got up to 90 degrees. And
I'm sitting right now in LA. It's 100 degrees where I live.
Yeah,
so it's like, wow, 90, huh?
Yeah. And that day, I went out and got the other thermally insulated bags, and I tested them. I have a black Lexus coupe, and the ambient temperature in that thing was 140. So I'd leave the bags in there for 45 minutes, and I tested the temperature of the wines against all of them. And sure as shit, it beat them all.
This is great. This is amazing. So if anybody, I guess, if you've made it this far in the podcast, you're like, all right, how do I get one of these things if I want to take a look at it? How do people get one?
Yeah, they can visit our website at www.vinarmour.com. And actually, I'm giving your listeners a promo code, because we don't do this very often. But we're giving you a promo code. You can use the promo code SOMMTV at the end, and you'll get $100 off your cart at checkout.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Not only are you never going to make any money, you're going to donate. You're going to give $100 off.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I do have in common with all the other dentists who get into the wine business. We make a decent amount of money, during a regular career, when we go into wine, and we end up freaking blowing it all.
Yeah. But it's the worst cliche in the world. How do you make $1 million in wine, start with 3 million or something? But but at the same time though, I think when you come up with something that is you've made a patent, you've invented it, or you've, whatever, it's a long haul. It's no different than making SOMM TV or whatever else. It's not gonna, this is a whole thing where you have to go piece by piece and do it the right way.
Yeah. To follow up on the question that you had, what's next? We just came out with a new tote. It's a tote bag that I initially designed to hold 2 of our wine carriers. So you can put 2 of our wine carriers in there. But what we did was we made it multi-purpose. It's got a beautiful trifold leather bottle guard in it. So if you wanted to put in 2 or 3 regular bottles without our carrier and put it in, it's a really nice piece. And
I have one of these. I've been to the listeners. I'm trying to get Brian to make me a camera bag that is just like this bag, because I'm telling you right now, it's so awesome. It's like there's just I just don't see a lot of people put this kind of care into making something like this. So I really mean this. It's easy for me to say.
Yeah. And I'm kind of flummoxed why someone hadn't done it before. But just to finish up on that, we're prototyping right now what we're calling the Vinarmour Professional, which is going to be a 6-bag tote there. And this is something you can put your camera in. You can put your camera and audio equipment in it, but it's going to be a beautiful, really beautiful piece that can hold up to 6 bottles. It's going to have side inserts where if you want to, you put in ice packs. We're going to have these custom ice packs for it. And It's going to be made with the same wax, cotton, and leather, but also going to be lined with the foam that we use. So if you're carrying 6 bottles somewhere to some sort of event, there's going to be an element of impact resistance. It's not going to be leak proof. It's going to be more like a satchel, but really high end. It's going to have the same feel, the same heritage rustic feel to it, and also guaranteed for 2 generations.
I mean, this is wild. If you're listening to this and you have an invention for wine, A, try to make it, and B, understand you get what you're asking for. Because I know, Brian, you've worked on this for many, many years. And this was a real serious.
Yeah, it's been a labor of love, and it's been so much fun.
So before we go, what was the best wine you had at the Food and Wine Classic?
That is a crazy question, because they're pouring all these wines that you hope to run into once or twice a year, right? And they're everywhere. Right. And so I don't think I can say the best wine, but the most unique wine was that Marcenais, the Fleur de Pinot. It was so unique. My favorite.
I think this was my favorite wine of the entire weekend.
Yeah.
They only bring in maybe a few cases of this wine into the United States, and they only make a barrel or two. It's a genetic mutation made from a Chardonnay grape, Fleur de Pinot. Yeah, it's a pink rosé Chardonnay from this one producer, and it is astoundingly gorgeous, balanced, tremendous. I'm so glad you brought that wine up, because that was in a hell of a glass. Claire ordered that. Claire Copey.
Yes. No, that was awesome. And I told you at the time that it was like, it reminded me of cattails, but the more I think about it, I think it reminded me more of the damp freshwater lake soil that the cattails were in. Just a really unique.
Interesting. That's very specific. I really like that one. I don't know if anybody listening has ever had it, but that would be a very big candidate for my favorite wine at the thing. So everybody, if you want to try to check out what I'm talking about, and you don't know me or come to my house, because I have one of these things in my house, go to vinarmour.com and put in SOMM TV all in caps, and you'll get $100 off one of these things, which is ridiculous. Brian, it's great to talk to you, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. One of the other amazing bottles we had, speaking of things coming on SOMM TV, is a 71 Barolo. So we have a Drink a Bottle episode that's going to cover with the head writer for wine on Food and Wine Magazine, Ray Isle. He drinks a bottle of 71 Barolo with our own Claire Copey, and that episode is coming next week to SOMM TV. It is really funny and great. And go to sommtv.com. It's $49.99 for an entire year, and you can see all of our coverage there, plus 400 plus hours of original content and so much more coming. We really appreciate you listening. Everybody be safe. Today's episode was mixed by John Adams and produced by Nadine Netman, and we really appreciate you listening. Please be safe.